faithfully delivering value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hi, I'm Sally, and this is Book Talk. Today, we're going to interpret the book Personality Everywhere for you. Simply put, personality is character. Everyone has their own traits. Some are enthusiastic and confident, others are cautious and careful. Each of these traits has its own strengths, but if taken too far, like being overly enthusiastic regardless of situation or relationship, or worrying excessively about everything, it adds stress to yourself and those around. When personality traits become extreme and rigid, people become hard to get along with and out of sync with their surroundings. What was originally neither good nor bad personality starts to hinder normal life, forming a personality disorder. For example, people with OCD are overly fixated on details. They must repeatedly check if the door's locked before leaving. Paranoid individuals are overly sensitive. A mere glance from others can be interpreted as an insult. Avoidant personality types often display a non-violent, non-cooperative attitude, feeling unmotivated in everything. The two authors of this book, François Lelord and Christophe André, are both French psychiatrists and authors of popular psychology bestsellers. After publication, Personality Everywhere consistently ranked high on Amazon France's psychology charts and was introduced to over 10 countries, including China, Japan, Germany, and Russia, receiving a warm welcome from global readers. This book introduces over 10 personality disorders, supplemented with vivid cases, teaching how to understand these symptoms and respond if someone with such disorders is around. In this episode, we'll focus on introducing 6 common personality disorders for you. They are anxiety type, obsessive compulsive type, depressive type, dependent type, narcissistic type, and type A personality. First, let's talk about anxiety type personality. Anxiety itself is a normal emotion and quite useful. An anxious mother pays more attention to her child, always accompanies them, and prepares food in advance, which isn't bad for young children. An employee worried about being late or failing tasks leaves earlier, works harder, and is more likely to excel in their career. However, excessive anxiety can disrupt normal life and even cause tension in relationships. People with excessive anxiety have two characteristics. One is they tend to worry unnecessarily, like frequently and intensely, fearing that they or loved ones are in danger. Secondly, they're very focused on risks, even tiny ones. In the minds of anxious people, these risks get magnified, making them freeze up. For example, Claire's mom is a classic case of anxiety-type personality. When Claire was in middle school, she was just half an hour late coming home once, and her mom called the police, crying, worried Claire had an accident. Even now that Claire's 28, if she's just 10 minutes late for an appointment, her mom still worries she got into a car crash. This constant overworrying really annoys Claire, but she also feels bad for her mom because deep down, her mom doesn't want to be like this. She just can't help it. For folks with anxiety-type personality, the world's a dangerous place full of crises, with disasters lurking everywhere, so they try to control everything to prevent risks. Normal people buckle up when driving and then just cruise along. Anxious people buckle up but still fret about getting into a crash at an intersection, so they decide to stay home instead. Dowell 1, Wednesday. So, why do some people get overly anxious? It's a combo of genetic factors and environmental ones, especially triggers from random traumatic events. First, the genetic side. Studies show that about a quarter of first-degree relatives, like biological parents, kids, and siblings, of folks with anxiety disorders also have them. Anxiety-type personalities are influenced by genetics too. So, next, the environmental aspect. Lots of anxiety symptoms linked to traumatic stuff like separations, moving, or losing loved ones. Say, if a close family member dies when you're young, and you don't really get what happened, it messes with your head and causes anxiety. To figure out if a personality disorders become a mental illness, the main gauge is how much it messes with daily life, like depression so bad you think about suicide, or extreme anxiety where you're in a quiet spot and panic, wanting to bolt or pass out. For these heavy psychological symptoms, therapy plus meds is the best way to go. Of course, if you feel your personality type starting to affect your life, like skipping hangouts with friends because you're scared it's unsafe out there, leading to drifting apart, then it's time to reach out to a pro for help. Oh, well, one day after the. So, if you're not a shrink, how do you handle folks around you with anxiety type personality or other disorders? You might get really annoyed by their symptoms, sometimes just wanting to stay far away, but we still need to understand their personality traits and learn to coexist. Because personality disorders are objective realities, like sunny or rainy weather. Complaining about rain ruining your plans is pointless. Only by accepting facts and preparing can we respond better. So we must master coping skills based on understanding. When communicating with people with personality disorders, three universal principles apply. First, focus on changing specific behaviors, not their mindset. Second, change should be gradual. Third, set clear boundaries. Help them change but avoid getting trapped in their patterns. Specifically for interacting with anxious individuals, if their anxiety seems pathological, suggest professional help. Therapy combined with medication is the best treatment for anxiety disorders. In daily life, non-doctors can do these three things. First, make them trust you're reliable. Say your boss is highly anxious. Then reply to emails promptly, prepare assigned work early, and anticipate details even they overlook. This shows you're dependable, reducing their anxiety around you. Second, help anxious people gain perspective. If dinner goes wrong, they'll obsess and spiral. That's when you can guide them. Ask, what real harm comes from burnt steak? Guess missed your cooking this time, but there'll be other dinners. Plus your dessert succeeded. It wasn't a disaster. Through small victories, they'll gradually adjust mentally. And that minor hiccups aren't catastrophic. Third, counter anxiety with humor. Even well-meant worry can be maddening.
Like when parents constantly ask, "Did you eat yet?"
Or are you home safe? Sarcasm feels satisfying, but only heightens their anxiety. Better to respond humorously, like, guess I'll always be your kid, never as careful as mom. Once anxious people's anxiety decreases, they won't get so tense about things like whether you got home safely. In human relationships, there are things you should do and shouldn't do. When dealing with anxious people, there are two things you shouldn't do. First, don't do things that worry them. Anxious people have startle responses. They get flustered by surprises. So don't throw surprise birthday parties. It won't make them happy and will just make everyone uncomfortable. And plus, anxious folks already have enough to worry about, so avoid dumping your problems on them. It just adds to their stress. Anxious people are disaster sensitive, so don't discuss unpleasant or risky topics with them. Some doctors advise anxious people to avoid disaster-related news, so if your partner's anxious, don't tell them you're going bungee jumping tomorrow. And second, don't let anxious people control your life. Most worries from anxious people come from good intentions. That's why we easily get trapped by their perspectives. Say you're traveling with a friend who frets about train or plane delays. They'd drag you to the airport at 3 a.m. for a 10 a.m. flight. Here, know how to say no. Explain there's plenty of time, and your travel experience prevents rookie mistakes like missing flights. Next, the second personality disorder, obsessive-compulsive personality. Its traits include perfectionism, stubbornness, and suspicion. They struggle to show warmth, seeming cold. They're highly responsible and meticulous, strictly adhering to moral codes. The book gives Mark's example, an employee whose flaw is extreme meticulousness at work. Taken too far, even when contracts are flawless, he's never satisfied. He'd hound legal teams for endless revisions, annoying everyone, even when clients approve products. But Mark insists they don't fully meet international standards. Everyone admits Mark's responsible and professional, but his nitpicking enforcement of every standard delays work and frustrates the team. The truth is, Mark knows his behavior upsets others. He just can't control it. He has an obsession with making things flawless. Mark is a classic case of obsessive compulsive personality. Compulsion relates to anxiety but has its own traits. If anxiety stems from primal human instincts, after all, an anxious monkey might survive better, then compulsion is arguably a product of modern society. From an evolutionary perspective, obsessive compulsion personality had no advantage initially, as early humans lived by gathering and hunting. But in agricultural societies, sowing, irrigation, and cultivation required strict, regular efforts, revealing this personality's strengths. Later, industrial societies' mass production demanded everything be done with strict standards and procedures, making obsessive compulsion thrive. For example, people who strictly adhere to standards and rules are more likely to win bosses' favor in modern jobs and earn higher incomes. However, obsessive compulsion personality differs from OCD. OCD sufferers have many compulsive behaviors, like locking the door 5 times before leaving or washing hands exactly 3 times. These meaningless thoughts plague them daily, tormenting patients and exhausting those around them. But obsessive compulsion personality doesn't necessarily involve compulsive actions, like Mark in the earlier example. Meticulous to the point of annoyance at work, but no compulsive behaviors. For instance, insisting every contract be printed 10 times before sharing. When dealing with obsessive compulsive personalities, first, don't let them control you. Obsessive and compulsive personalities love to control, always wanting others to act as they dictate. You need to dare to say no while respecting them. Second, avoid expressing overly strong emotions or frequently giving gifts or thanks. In the mindset of obsessive and compulsive personalities, they should reciprocate kindness equally, but they're not good at expressing emotions. In reciprocal actions, they often feel helpless, so frequent gifts and politeness annoy them. When facing obsessive and compulsive personalities, there are 3 main things we can do. First, express appreciation and respect to prove you're reliable. Obsessive compulsion personalities strive for perfection in everything. If you want them to value your suggestions or criticisms, first express your appreciation and agreement. They prefer planning ahead and reject improvisation.
So when traveling with them, try not to stop their meticulous trip preparations. Obsessive compulsive personalities value promises.
So either don't make promises or keep them once made. This builds your reliable image in their eyes. This helps them later accept your suggestions. Second, criticism must be evidence-based. Getting angry at obsessive compulsive personalities is useless. If you act frantic or irritable, it only convinces them you're unreliable. Criticize them specifically. Use data to explain problems as they value precision. Third, help them relax.
Obsessive compulsion personalities pursue flawlessness in everything.
They carry too much responsibility and get exhausted. They secretly crave relaxation. Create opportunities like inviting them to casual sports to relieve stress. If an employee has this personality, assign them detail-oriented tasks like quality control. It brings them joy. Next, depressive personality. These individuals are withdrawn, avoid socializing, and find interactions draining. They view things pessimistically, like anxious people, focusing on negatives and exaggerating risks. Worse, they undervalue their abilities even when competent. In short, depressive personalities see their world and future as bleak. Their world is gray. Madeline's father was a classic example. In her memory, he always wore a frown. Even when moving to a new home excited others, he criticized the decor. He worked diligently and earned others' respect. But Madeline felt he was perpetually tired and rarely smiled. Like anxiety type, depressive personality stems from both genetics and environment. The American Psychiatric Association terms persistent 2-year depression as dysthymia. In fact, 3 to 5% of people, especially women, experience dysthymia in their lifetime. Some eventually emerge from depression, others live with it lifelong. The difference between depressive personality and depression is a matter of severity. For example, determining whether Madeline's father had depression requires considering other factors and professional evaluation. When dealing with depressive personalities, the author recommends encouraging them to seek professional help early. Additionally, recognize their deep need for care. We can support them in two key ways. First, help them see the positive side and find joy. For academic stress, the workload's heavy, but the rewards after graduation will be greater if they doubt completing tasks. You can do this. Why else would your boss choose you? Depressed individuals struggle to feel happiness. As family or friends, engage them in manageable, joyful activities like walks or trips. Second, offer genuine care. Depressed people often have low self-esteem and crave validation. This helps rebuild their confidence in life. When expressing care, be specific. Don't just say, "You're a good employee." Instead, "Your 5-minute presentation in this morning's meeting was outstanding." Supporting depressed individuals isn't easy. We may feel frustrated, but remember two things to avoid. First, never give generic advice like, "cheer up," or "think differently." This is like blaming nearsighted people for poor vision. They lack the ability, not the will, to be happy. Second, don't sink into their gloom. While supporting them is our duty, we must protect our own well-being. Only by staying healthy can we care for them effectively. When needed, help them access professional support. Don't shoulder this alone. That's all. We've covered anxiety, obsessive-compulsive, and depressive personality disorders. Other disorders seem less severe, like not causing suicide, but still impact work and life. Next, we'll focus on dependent, narcissistic, and type A personalities. First, dependent personality. Dependent individuals prefer others making decisions for them and enjoy helping others. They also tend to agree easily and rarely criticize others. But over time, you'll notice their constant need for emotional companionship. If neglected, they may blame others, gradually surrendering control of their lives and ending up in unfulfilling situations. Take Philip the accountant, who calls himself sociable. As a child, to fit in during plays, he'd take insignificant roles like a motionless tree instead of a knight. At work, he always complies with team requests. You can count on him. So his relationships are good, but he sometimes regrets life choices, like choosing accounting over literature in college against his passion. Philip struggles to find genuine happiness in life. He's a classic dependent personality. So, how to handle dependent personalities around you? First, encourage initiative. Make fewer decisions for them. Dependent people fear failure, so they hesitate and wait for rescue. Thus, spark their initiative and reassure them failure isn't catastrophic. When they seek advice, don't immediately answer. It feeds dependency. Second, encourage expanding social circles. This breaks dependency monotony for them. Diverse connections bring varied perspectives, aiding independence. But don't abandon them completely while promoting independence. Like teaching swimming, don't just throw them in deep water. Ignoring needs causes anxiety. If they fail, they'll believe even more in their incompetence. Next is narcissistic personality, a common phenomenon in life. Some obsess over looks, others display trophies at work. Mild narcissism has benefits, like when criticized, narcissists don't self-doubt, believing they're right. In evenly matched situations, narcissists often succeed more than humble people because they project an aura that helps them stand out. When we call someone a narcissist, it means their self-importance, whether about looks or abilities, has reached extreme levels, constantly flaunting superiority in ways that make others uncomfortable. Independent careless. True narcissists appear polished but have many irritating traits, manipulating others for personal gain, focusing solely on themselves while ignoring others. If they don't receive enough special treatment or attention, they'll become enraged. Alan, a successful businessman, is a classic narcissist, a charismatic star in advertising. As an ad agency founder with many awards displayed in his office, working with him is tough due to his volatility, praising you one day, ridiculing you the next. Those who oppose him face consequences. Alan considers himself exceptional, believing rules for ordinary people don't apply to him. Over time, people grew to dislike him more and more. Narcissists often face trigger situations like pulling a trigger. For instance, not being specially introduced in meetings or lacking honorifics can ignite their narcissistic rage. Research shows narcissists are more prone to midlife crises. Having always overvalued their looks and abilities, they perceive declines in appearance and competence during middle age. This makes them feel devalued, dealing a massive blow to their confidence.
Narcissists are hard to deal with. Don't confront them directly, but don't be overly accommodating either.
With a narcissistic boss, use honorifics like Mr., but avoid habitual acts like serving coffee. Don't let them treat you as a servant. Additionally, 3 tricks help handle narcissistic personalities. First, offer sincere praise and criticize only when necessary. Narcissists will see you as a perceptive ally, so they won't excessively show off in front of you or easily get angry at you. Thus, they're more open to accepting criticism from you. Second, keep your achievements low-key. To a narcissist, your success feels like bragging, causing them distress. So if you're unlucky enough to have a narcissistic boss, remember, don't flaunt your competence in front of him. The third trick applies once you've gained a narcissist's trust. At this point, you'll often hear them criticize others, calling someone worthless, ungrateful, etc. The implication behind these words is that someone didn't show them enough attention and respect. So, as a friend, take time to explain you understand their feelings. But everyone has different perspectives and positions. We all have our struggles. Once narcissists realize it's normal for others to think differently, they won't get as angry. Finally, type A personality. Less discussed historically, but increasingly common today. Type A individuals are impatient go-getters. To them, slow is intolerable. They work intensely, compete fiercely, and wish to split minutes. Type A personalities are ambitious, confident, and achievement-driven. They love high-intensity competitive tasks done quickly and detest anyone blocking their KPIs. But their impatience isn't just psychological. It causes serious health issues, demanding attention. For example, Reno's boss is so impatient, he asks second questions before first answers are complete. In meetings, if someone rambles, he either interrupts or finishes their sentences impatiently. Minor employee mistakes easily infuriate him. He's not malicious and quite capable, but has a volatile temper. When he's about to erupt, everyone avoids him. This boss exemplifies classic Type A personality. Type A personality's core issue is stress management, stress being our body's natural adaptation response. Suddenly, a black bear charges at the primitive man. The body releases more adrenaline, heart races, breathing quickens, blood vessels constrict, sending glucose-rich blood to muscles, preparing for escape. So stress is actually useful, but excessive stress reactions hinder our performance. Type A personalities have problematic stress management. Their reactions are stronger, longer, and more frequent, like perpetual motion machines needing no rest. This might be manageable when young, but aging bodies sound alarms. Thus, learning stress management is crucial for Type A personalities. When interacting with them, focus on 2 things. First, demonstrate trustworthiness. Be upfront. If running late for a date with a Type A person, tell them you'll be 30 minutes late. They'll relax and use the time productively rather than stewing. Second, help them gain perspective and practice relaxation. Type A personalities are hyper-focused goal chasers who often ignore their own exhaustion. Remind them not everything is as critical as they imagine. Sometimes stepping back isn't a bad thing. Type A personalities need physical and mental relaxation, true relaxation. This requires behavioral changes like vacationing without laptops and doing aimless activities. Say, strolling on the beach. Never confront Type A personalities head-on. Their competitiveness will escalate conflict. Type A tempers flare quickly but aren't deeply personal. Don't dwell on conflicts. They might forget why they were angry by tomorrow. We've covered 6 personality disorders: anxiety, obsessive-compulsive, depressive, dependent, narcissistic, and Type A. The book also discusses others like paranoid personality. They're extremely distrustful of others, seeing malice everywhere, but won't admit issues until frequent conflicts lead to social isolation. Then they may sink into depression, then seek doctor's help, and there's passive aggressive personality. Similar to procrastination, they're chronically late, forget tasks, complain constantly, and habitually defy authority. Each personality has unique traits, sometimes blending, like narcissistic and histrionic, forming narcissistic histrionic mix. Histrionic personality, formerly called hysteria, features volatile, exaggerated emotions and attention seeking at all costs. They let emotions escalate uncontrollably. Narcissistic histrionic individuals display exaggerated seductive behaviors while feeling superior. Hearing this, you might be matching these disorders to yourself or loved ones, even panicking. Do I have a disorder? Relax. We all show some traits occasionally without it being pathological. As said earlier, if it doesn't seriously disrupt life, don't overreact. But if needed, seek professional help promptly. Personality is relatively stable, but adapts through environment, education, and life experiences. Self-adjustment occurs. Shy kids forced into social jobs become more outgoing. Those still quiet, alone, rigid people soften around children, growing kinder over time. Personality everywhere, like labels making you uniquely yourself. Understanding personality is understanding humanity. This is life's work for us humans. All right, that concludes our interpretation of personality everywhere. Reading notes below the audio. See you next time.